So modern Pokemon is doing bits. I'm sure that's not news to you, and it isn't news to myself. But the fact that every day that goes by, just things get crazier and crazier, or at least it seems like it. And we're all sat there thinking, "Hey, is this the new normal? Like, what exactly is going on?" But just before we get into the video, what's good, YouTube? PokePhD here. I just wanted to kind of give some, or have a bit of a discussion about whether you are looking at maybe buying, investing, whatever you want to do in some Sword and Shield or modern booster boxes, just because, as I mentioned, things have been a bit crazy as of recently, and they're continuing to be like that. So here you can see all the different prices for the Sword and Shield booster boxes. Obviously, Crown Zenith being the final set is not included here because it's obviously a special box with ETBs only. So this goes all the way up to Silver Tempest. And obviously ignore the cases. We're obviously just kind of looking at the single booster box prices. So if I quickly scroll down, you can see that Evolving Skies is roughly around about $350, and it was a bit of a random middle of the night, early morning drop on the US Pokemon Center. Apparently didn't get a hold of any of it myself, but I'm aware of a few people that did, and quite a few people who actually managed to get a bit of product. Funny thing is that I don't know for what reason they added it in the, I believe it was about 4 or 5 in the morning, Eastern time, I think, maybe a little bit later than that. I'm not sure on the exact specifics, but it really didn't last long. And the fact that product is being released, and this wasn't just product from a certain store that was like deciding to sell it. This was the Pokemon Center selling at MSRP, so like $140. And the fact that it disappeared so quickly isn't a surprise to myself nor to anyone listening, I'm sure. And also the fact that it's barely kind of moved Evolving Skies price down. There is so much demand for this set that whatever was released, I can't imagine it was that much, but it didn't even make a dent, didn't even make the smallest dent in the demand and in the craze. People trying to pick up those boxes, and the number of people I hear nowadays where it's like, oh, I'm trying to pick up this box and keep sealed. I'm trying to get all the Sword and Shield booster boxes and keep them sealed, and the amount of times I've heard that over the last couple of years is just insane. And to think that there are just so many people out there waiting for that opportunity for something like Evolving Skies to come out. I saw the people that did go for it. There was a maximum, I believe, of 6 boxes, and people just ordered a case. Like, it's just a no-brainer. Instantly, you've made $200 per box without even having to do anything, which is just insane to think. And how long can this can this continue? Because it kind of brings me to another point where I've been having some discussions with my distributor as of recently, and they're just not telling me. They're just unsure as to what's coming through. They're not sure what booster boxes they're expecting. I don't know what kind of Pokemon is doing generally in terms of how they're communicating with distributors. But what I'm getting from mine is just, oh, we don't know, we'll see. And then I'm also randomly getting, oh, by the way, here's a couple of boxes of Fusion Strike, here's a couple of boxes of Lost Origins, here's a couple of boxes of Silver Tempest, like out of the blue, out of nowhere. And it's very limited in kind of release and availability. I've genuinely limited to a couple of boxes even a lot of the time. So it's so odd to think that we've all been waiting the last 6 months up to a year for like reprints for a decent number of sets. Maybe not like Battle Styles and Chilling Reign, for example, because enough of those were printed around the time of release. But stuff like Evolving Skies, stuff like Brilliant Stars, you can see there as well. Maybe even like a Fusion Strike, even though it's obviously not as in demand as the first 2 I mentioned. But I'm just being told we don't really know. Like, when something comes through, we'll let you know. Otherwise, we're just kind of waiting to see what's happened. But do you know the entire maybe last 3 months, what has been coming all the time is the bloody Charizard UPC. So I don't know if like Pokemon have just were like, okay, for like 3 months we're just printing Charizard UPCs, and then there's like one small print in the corner that like, let's print the stuff that everyone actually also wants alongside the Charizard UPC. So it's just insane. And then day after day things go on. Like this Evolving Skies random drop on the Pokemon Center website was as I said, random, right? And like, who knows when that's going to happen again. If you are interested in picking something like that up, make sure you're, following the few Twitter accounts. I don't follow them myself, but I'm sure there's something out there if you look where you can get notifications there. You can, I don't know if you can. You could probably save the listing on the Pokemon Center website, and they'll give you a notification. I mean, I can't purchase from the US site. I'm based in the UK, for example, but just a tip for those who are based in the US and are looking for that kind of thing. But as I said, things are just, I guess they're just really quite confusing at this moment in time. The longer we go without there being proper reprints to fulfill that demand, and that demand just seems to be growing every day as well. So the longer time goes on, the harder it is going to be to meet that demand. And then that just means prices are creeping up and up and up. Anytime there is a reprint, it's a small one. The previous Evolving Skies reprint, which maybe six months, maybe a bit longer, I'm not too sure exactly, eaten up immediately. Boxes barely went down in price, and 2 months later they were like $250. And then, as you can see now, the price that they're at the moment is just beyond even that. So it kind of leads me to kind of contemplate a few other things as well. Before we get into those, I just wanted to quickly go through a few more of the prices, just to kind of give an idea of where these were at roughly 6 months ago, maybe within the past year. So, for example, Sword and Shield was maybe around about $100 cheaper than that. Maybe it was closer, around about $200 maybe a year ago. These might not be exact prices. I might be even 3 months ago it was, geez, like even in the last 3 months, around about $200. April probably was a bit of a dip, even if you go further back there. So that's obviously Sword and Shield. Rebel Clash, I don't think Rebel Clash probably has increased as much as a lot of other products. You can see there 175-ish. Yeah, it's been a bit more steady than most. If we take a look at Brilliant Stars, it was about 130, 120 at release, and then it's just been creeping up since. We can obviously take a look at the data, because that's obviously useful, rather than me speculating. 130, 140, and then just up. I'm actually pretty spot on with stuff. Obviously, Chilling Reign, Battle Styles, they were like $80, $90 because they were printed so heavily, even though they were like middle of like right in the middle of like COVID stuff. But you can see there that Chilling Reign is now it's close to 150. Can you actually believe you could not sell them for like $80, $90 at their lowest, and now they've crept up so much to 150. Is this a set that's going to get reprinted anytime soon? Who knows, but probably not, considering so much was printed. Obviously, product was obviously being a small amount was obviously being distributed throughout maybe a kind of year at least of the product release, and I'm not sure exact numbers, but there's always product coming through, whether in the collection boxes or booster boxes. But generally, can we expect a big reprint of those? Probably not. We've had decent reprints of Darkness Ablaze and Vivid Voltage as of recent. Obviously they peaked much higher. Particularly Vivid Voltage was over $200 at some point during the pandemic, and now we're at a more kind of stable 150 price, which sounds a bit more reasonable. Similar thing with Fusion Strike. Lost Origin obviously is still quite new. Same with Silver Tempest, hitting those 130-ish prices. Let me actually show you that rather than just saying it. And then obviously Battle Styles, just being the worst set, is just going to probably stay at that price. It's probably not even. Wonder if it's actually the worst set of the era. I think Rebel Clash is probably worse, right? But there's a lot less of it going around. Battle Styles was printed to a ridiculous amount. But yeah, the prices, at least for these boxes, it's mostly, I guess, Evolving Skies. But like, who's to say Brilliant Stars won't be well into the 200s if it doesn't also receive a decent reprint? Somewhat of a reprint comes again, it's going to be eaten up again, and it just kind of maybe slows down that creep. But is there any way of keeping those prices low? Probably not. So what does it mean in terms of when you want to pick up, when you want to buy? it seems like at this moment in time, it's a bit risky waiting for product at MSRP, unless you're lucky to come across something like what happened in Pokemon Center and Evolving Skies recently. Maybe now is probably the best time to pick up some of those boxes. If you can get them maybe 10 or 15% even cheaper than MSRP, for example, if you can pick up a Brilliant Stars for like 150, 160. I believe they're available for that in pounds in the UK relatively recently. It would have been a good time to pick those up. I mean, the way things are going, there's just a decent amount of uncertainty, and who the hell knows what's what's going to happen, and if there are reprints, for example, if they're going to be enough. And realistically, there won't be. And as I said, as time continues, it's going to be harder and harder to meet that demand. I also kind of made me think a little bit about comparing maybe a bit to some of the Sun and Moon boxes. So here we've got some prices of some Sun and Moon product, and the reason why I've been thinking about that is just because I've seen a few people also discussing it and asking questions about that kind of thing, whether it's worth it to invest in Sun and Moon product, or whether it's worth just taking that dive with Sword and Shield. I know I'm covering up the Celestial Storm booster box price, but it's roughly around about $500. But the rest are pretty visible. Obviously, Team Up being the standout at $1,000, which is just obviously absolutely insane. But are these more justifiable than is it more justifiable than this $350 Evolving Skies booster box price? That's a tough question. Just because it's maintained this price, and it's been continued to go up for some time and defied expectations. And there's obviously big significant differences between the two. This is still in print. Not that means anything anymore, apparently, which is kind of a big takeaway for me over the last few months in terms of how quickly something can increase in price. But something like Team Up, been out of print for a while, limited print, and I mean, it's $1,000. And is that worth picking up, or are you better off picking up 3 Evolving Skies booster packs, for example? For me, my personal favorite set from Sun and Moon is Cosmic Eclipse. So that's I mean, it's around about $600, considering it's 2019, so 4 years. It's going to be 4 years old soon enough. I don't know exactly when. I think it would have been early mid. Not too sure. However, that's obviously getting up there in age. There was some released in some collection boxes recently, if I recall correctly, but that's not affecting booster box prices realistically, is it? Especially from what we've seen. So if you look at the majority of these Sun and Moon boxes, they are roughly around that kind of $400 to $500 range, maybe a little bit higher for Cosmic Eclipse, of course, and then Team Up's kind of in its own dimension. And then you can pick up like Crimson Invasion, Forbidden Light, just the do I see Ultra Prison there? Yeah, 400. So those are obviously, Crimson Invasion is just a trash set. It's not worth anyone's money. Even when I've sold some recently, and I'm like, it is not a good set, but if you want the box, then go for it. And then obviously Forbidden Light being also, I don't believe there's anything too good in there. It's just the Ultra Necrozma cards. But some of these sets, for example, the Guardians Rising is like, what's so great about Guardians Rising as well, and that's at a $400 price. But then you compare to Evolving Skies, which is slightly it's a similar price, $330 to a $330, $350. So if you were to choose one of Evolving Skies and Guardians Rising, what would you go for? And I think the obvious answer is to go with Evolving Skies, but is that reflective of Sword and Shield across the board relative to Sun and Moon across the board? Like if you had 200, is it better to go for the Brilliant Stars, or is it better to go for Crimson Invasion? Sounds like Sword and Shield is taking the win there, and probably across the board a lot of the time it is. If you just look at the returns, and another kind of reason why I wanted to look into it and potentially make a video at some point going into a little bit more depth and looking at some more data, the returns you're getting on a Sun and Moon box since their release, 17, 18, 19 to now, you're looking at maybe like a 10% return on year, maybe a bit more, depending on the box. Of course, even like a Burning Shadows wasn't decent set, certainly. But what, 4 years old, 5 years old now, and it's gone from 100 to 140, 130 to 360. So it's obviously done reasonably well over those 4 years. But what happened most of the time? There wasn't much of an increase. COVID happened, and a lot of these boxes got snapped up, opened up, and like with everything else, that variation in price happened very quickly over that kind of initial, or over that pandemic period. Whereas we're well out of that pandemic period, and the Sword and Shield, some of the Sword and Shield product is still doing crazy things. The Evolving Skies, Brilliant Stars, that kind of thing. Even look at Scarlet and Violet, that should be out at the end of the month. And it'd be interesting to see what Pokemon do there. I imagine they'll have printed a very decent amount of that, and they tend to do that with the first set of an era, of course. But you've seen what's happened on the Japanese side, where the booster boxes are like double retail price. And are we expecting something similar with the English setups? Definitely not double the price, but you know, what I just like, it makes me wonder what on earth is going on with the printing older sets, and because we're getting a lot of that new product. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think that would be a good marker to what's to come in the future, just because they've got enough time to prepare for this. Crown Zenith, obviously, a really, really good set, probably the best set of Sword and Shield. I personally think it's better than Evolving Skies, but I think most would maybe go for that, or Brilliant Stars, for example. It'll be interesting to see how the release of Scarlet and Violet, what it means for Pokemon moving into the next era, and how they go about doing things, because we're already struggling getting Crown Zenith product inconsistently. So I'm just wondering what exactly is going on, which is leading to this. We're probably going to see, unless we get an extortionate amount of Crown Zenith product in over the next couple of months, we're probably going to see a pretty drastic jump in there. So it makes me think maybe the play is just dipping in with some of these new releases, and you know, if you pick the good set, if you pick the right set, that's going to do reasonably well over the next couple of years. You don't even need to talk about keeping things for 5 or 10 years, which is what I hear from most people. If you're picking up Evolving Skies or Brilliant Stars, you're doing reasonably well flipping those within a year or two and making, 50%, maybe even doubling your money on those. So as I said, let's keep an eye on things as they're moving forward. Just wanted to share some views. I know I've babbled a little bit here towards the end of the video, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see exactly how things are moving forwards. But thank you for checking out the video, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one.